Well, welcome back to another week's analysis behind the news. I just got back from a business trip to Austria, and all of Europe, of course, is concerned about the migration from the East, from the Middle East actually, of the Muslim families and young men who are invading Western Europe. They say it's going to be up to 35 million. Now, interestingly, we are plied with photos of families, little children, that sort of thing. But in some areas where they're trying to cross over into Hungary and Croatia and Austria and those places, they are very virile young men. They don't look emaciated at all. They are very substantial. They don't look like they've missed a meal, that sort of thing. Some of them are engaging in coordinated demonstrations, for instance, at the border points, which shows organization in addition to just a number of people trying to get in. In other words, some organization is behind a lot of this. And all the papers are full of it. As I said, here's Österreich, which is Austria. It's a free newspaper, and they're showing the little child being lifted over the border fence by Austrian troops. The International New York Times is full of it too. Here's a shot where they're trying to close down the Hungarian border to all these migrants, so on and so forth. Again, they have shots of children crying. You remember the picture of the child, the dead, laying on its face on the beach in Turkey as a means to get people sympathetic to the plight of the migrants. But when you really think about this and you really think it through, there's a lot of problems when you're looking at pictures like this that are being promoted both in Europe and the United States. First of all, look at a map of that area from the Middle East, look at Afghanistan, all the way through to the Atlantic Ocean. How do these people get there? And in such good shape? We're talking about people who supposedly, in most instances, have walked or they're riding on trains. If they're riding on trains, how are they able to do that? How are they able to afford that unless they've got some sort of currency that they have on hand to come into a country? But even so, these are supposedly homeless, even penniless people, millions of them. You can imagine yourself, if you were to pick up right today and leave, how far would you get with the cash in your pocket? I doubt that you'd get very far, frankly. And so they don't have the ability to use credit cards in many of these instances in the way that they're coming in. So you have to ask a lot of questions as to how can they come all the way from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Syria, so on and so forth, and move through Turkey on into Greece, etc. Now, here's another one today out of Vienna. That's what heute means, and here it's showing the Austrian army going to the border and trying to keep people out. The day I left Austria, 5,000 people a day were coming in. Now, Austria is a population of 8 million people. If you multiply 5,000 a day, that's 2 million people that would come into Austria in a year. Now, Austria has the same basic population of, say, Virginia, which is 8 million. And so you can imagine the impact that 2 million people would have in Virginia or Austria. Where do you house them? How do you find jobs? You already have unemployment. What are you going to do with these people? You've got to put them on the dole. How do you feed them? On and on and on. The logistics and everything else of this kind of an influx is very disruptive on the economy and society. And it is disruptive ultimately on the government itself. In fact, they're talking now in the international edition of the Financial Times, which I got there. It says, border-free travel hit as political rift grows. And one of the subtitles, they say, control-free borders cannot exist in the long term without a real European asylum policy. So in other words, it isn't simply a situation that Hungary or Croatia or Austria or any of the others are concerned with. It is something that they are going to foist on a larger regional government. In other words, they need a European Union solution. In so doing, to take that pressure off themselves, they are actually creating a loss of sovereignty, a loss of control over their own borders, to where it becomes a regional border and they take all of these people into the region. It's just like they're trying to do in the United States relative to our loss of sovereignty and a regional North American Union solution to migration from Mexico and that sort of thing. They're using these things to build internationalism. As a matter of fact, in a New York Times article that I downloaded off the internet this morning, it says that the refugees that we are going to take in, which, by the way, the United States government has now stated we're going to take in even more, then these refugees will be off the United Nations lists. So you see, we're already giving power to the United Nations to decide who's going to come into our country. Incidentally, the individual that I was in Austria with came back on a different airplane than I did. He told me when we met again in Chicago that 30 plus or minus refugee people were actually squired onto the plane different than all the other passengers. In other words, that block of passengers, they stopped loading everybody else and moved those people on in a controlled situation. When they hit Chicago, when all of us would go through the normal customs lines and inspections and questions and all the rest of it, these 30 were taken, escorted off the plane together and put through a different system into the United States, obviously by the government. These were individuals that looked like they came, according to my friend, from the Middle East. He wasn't sure. It's hard to tell exactly what country they would have been from. But that sort of thing goes on a lot. And most people don't see it happening because they're not there at that time watching that sort of thing. But it happens almost every day. We've talked about it before on these broadcasts. But at any rate, these things are going to change society. And as a result of that, and have tremendous burden on the economy of these countries. And as a result of that, they are looking for other solutions. Please, Big Brother, come and help us take care of this problem in Europe with the European Union. We could talk about this even more, but I think that's enough for this particular week. One other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention was this article out of the Wall Street Journal this morning. Wolves return to California stirs debate. And I spent a whole evening with a veterinarian in Vienna, and she was telling me they have a wolf problem as well now in Austria and Europe. You see, a lot of the wolf population disappeared in western United States because, well, they're dangerous. They kill domestic animals, domesticated animals as well, cattle, sheep. They've decimated deer in many areas. They've decimated the herd of elk in the Yellowstone, on and on and on. With the reintroduction of wolves, and not even indigenous to the area, they've pulled them in from Canada, and that is a much dangerous wolf than what was there originally. And these wolves are giving farmers and ranchers fits. They're going to start giving city dwellers fits too when they run out of deer and elk and other animals to eat in the wild. Keep in mind that wolves have bloodlusts. We had a rancher in Montana that lost 300 sheep in one night because of this. They don't eat them, they just kill them. The largest cattleman in the state of Washington told me personally he lost $150,000 worth of cattle to the wolves. They don't eat them, they just kill them. Oh, they might eat one, but they kill a lot of them and then just leave them there. Well, they've got the same problem with the government coming in, the ecologists in Europe, making sure that the wolf can survive. The wolf almost disappeared almost completely from Europe. Now they're reintroducing it. It's upsetting the balance of the ecology in the forests of Europe, just as it's beginning to do in the United States. Same there, same here. Migration, same there, same here. It all fits an agenda leading towards a new world order. Until next week, we'll see you then.